Hey everybody, welcome to Co-Creation Station with Collin and Stephanie. My name's Collin. I'm a spiritual guide and medium.
Hi, my name's Stephanie. I'm a transformational life coach.
And we're going to talk today about the year 2021, which by the time this is posted, it might already be, I think it will be 2021. We're actually recording this on December
27th?
27th, yeah.
2020.
2020, in the waning days of 2020. So I had mentioned to you, Stephanie, that I wanted to talk about 2021 from a pretty specific perspective, which is that early on in 2020, I would say somewhere around March or April, especially on social media and the internet, this sort of agreed upon cultural concept started gaining ground, and it just sort of spread like wildfire. And I found myself even using it time and time again, and always feeling like, I think this was not the best thing we could have done as a culture to do this, but it was. So to explain what it is, it's that somewhere March, April, people started saying, sort of blaming all the things that, like the COVID pandemic and a lot of the election craziness in the United States and things like that, as they blamed it on the year of 2020, as if 2020 was like a force or a person who was causing all these things. I'm a huge TikTok viewer now, and there's even like a very popular, there's one guy who's doing this sort of series of videos where 2020 is a person. Yeah. And 2021 is a person, and he's talking about how great he's going to be, but like the guy, the 2020 person is always like just coming up with new and horrible things that, he's going to do to the world before he shuffles off. So, I mean, what I started seeing this, I want to say it was I meant to look this up before this episode and I didn't, but there's something like 2016 or 2017. I just remember when it was David Bowie died early-ish in that year, and then some other sort of beloved public figure, I can't remember who it was, but died. And people on Facebook and Instagram started saying like, screw you, 2016, like how could you do this to us? Again, personifying, like making the year like a deity or something, and assigning all the things people thought were bad to like the actions of this, being called 2016 or whatever. And I thought it was funny at the time, but I also thought, but knowing what I know about the art of the law of attraction and the art of allowing that we talked about on our first episode, it's like, but this is going to become a thing, I mean, this is generating, people are now vibrating with this energy of like, 2020 is terrible and brings terrible things. And we can't really do much about that now because it's almost over. And by the time people are watching this, it is over. But I was concerned about myself primarily, but also like the human collective, because I think the idea that everybody is sort of having is like, 2020 was this terrible thing and it just had awful things, which I think we need to talk about that too. Like, was everything really awful? Was everything bad?
Not at all.
Yeah, that's the other thing. But that somehow 2021 is going to be this polar opposite. It's going to be this everything's going to go right, and we're not going to have any sickness or any disease. No celebrities are going to die. There aren't going to be
any residual from 2020.
Yeah. Just all these sort of like almost fantasy things about how life doesn't really work. Like, like people die. Like that's going to happen every year. Somebody famous is going to die every year. We're going to have global challenges. We're going to have conflict between countries, within countries, like every year. Like that's just part of what it is. But I sort of feel like sometimes I have this, like, it's not really clairvoyance, but it feels like it, in the sense that like people, as soon as something that the culture or whatever thinks is bad happens, the first thing that's probably going to happen on social media is people are going to start being like, oh no, 2021 is, what if it's even worse than 2020? And we're going to have this being or force named 2021 that is going to be blamed for every quote unquote bad thing that happens in the new year. And then that's going to be a vibration, planetary wide, whatever.
So hearing you explain it now, I completely forgot that was going to be what we were going to talk about, that it was like this thing. I just thought it was going to be more of, 2020 was challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And how do we kind of shift gears?
Yeah.
And look at it, just kind of shift our thinking and our expectation and seeing, like, owning our part in it and shifting into 2021 and not perpetuating what happened in 2020 and from a law of attraction, art of allowing thing, to just not go into that and have 2021 not be much different than 2020.
Right.
But I understand what you're saying now. And I think it's a little bit of both, but I think what kept coming up for me when you were talking was how we give our power away.
Yeah, exactly.
How we give our power away, one, how we don't own our power, two, and it could be whichever one's first and second, but I think it's really coming from that. And I think that is kind of what you're talking about. Like, we don't own it. We don't own, like, oh, I have a part in this.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. We don't own, like, I love when Abraham talks about how Esther, who channels Abraham, was saying, like, oh yeah, I created that thing I don't like so much.
Yeah.
Like, owning the good stuff, owning the bad stuff as well. Or not good and bad, but owning the things we like and owning the things we don't like as well. Like, I perpetuated all of that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think there's different aspects of it to me. That's probably the most important one. I think, one is, and I think people do this, and I've been guilty of this. This is something I've had to train myself out of, which is blaming, having a personal challenging experience, let's say financially, and blaming the national or the global economy. And when I say that, I don't mean that I want to be careful with this because people misinterpret, but I don't mean that the global economy or the national economy doesn't have an impact on people. It absolutely does. I understand that. But my experience has been, and I mean, I literally have proof of my life of this, is that if I have positive thoughts around my money and I do the things necessary to take care of my money, I don't necessarily control it into being, like with my ego, I don't control myself into wealth or whatever. But what I found is if I have a good vibration going about money, which these days mostly I do, wealth sort of comes to me regardless of the national economy and the global economy. Doesn't mean I'm not affected by it. It just means that I have experienced, like, being somewhat insulated from it. Because I have a positive vibration going about my personal money and my personal finances and my personal wealth that is more powerful in my life than the external forces that are whipping everything around. Doesn't mean that I won't get affected by the national and global forces at some point, but it just does mean that I'm not giving my power away mentally.
We're not blowing in the wind like this or that.
Economy. I'm not assuming that because the national economy is bad that I'm going to have a rough time no matter what.
Because let's just say there were a lot of people in 2020 who actually thrived. And
there are people that thrive in every,
it has nothing to do with, because you said it is actually our vibration. And let's just clarify too, because there could be some people watching and listening that don't know what vibration or what we mean by that. So vibration is what we think. What we think has a vibration. Mm-hmm. Everything's energy. What we say has a vibration. What we do has a vibration. And so it's like that. That's what vibration is. It's energy.
Yeah. But the one careful thing I want to put in there is, just to clarify, is it's almost, my understanding is it's like a combination. So if I am saying, I really want money, I'm so broke, I can't believe how broke I am, I really want some money, like, that's not a vibration that's going to typically bring money in me, because my energy, my emotions with
is repelling money.
I'm actually sending out to the universe, like, please don't send me money. I'm in.
Exactly. It's that whole thing we were talking about before, like, come to me money, but Yeah,
Yeah,
the
stay away.
vibration, yeah. And there's different levels of vibration. There's the
Yeah,
word vibration,
yeah,
there's the thought vibration, there's the action vibration, there's various levels of that
yeah.
vibration.
So I mean, it's one of those things, and I think this actually is, there's some truth to this, even if you don't believe in law of attraction as well. If you just believe in basic psychology, if you walk around telling yourself internally, the national economy is in a tailspin, so there's no way I can get a job. The national economy is in a tailspin, so there's no way I can make money.
And you're right, you're not gonna get any.
Like even from a like just a rote psychological, without the law of attraction stuff, that person is going to be, you're going to be less motivated to look for a job. When you are looking for a job, you're going to have a negative attitude, so prospective employers and recruiters aren't going to vibe with you as much, just on a human level. If you're
Yeah.
like, why can't I get a job, if that's your dominant thoughts, so. But then if you do believe in the law of attraction like you and I do, you're putting out, it's not just a psychological framework, you're also putting out energy and vibration, which is like basically telling the universe, please keep money away from me, please keep a new job away from me.
Yeah.
Because enjoying isn't the right word, but it's sort of like, because I am in this energy right now of being broke, and that's what I want to spend my energy on right now. That's sort of what you're telling the universe, is like, again, enjoy is the wrong word, but it's like, I'm going to do this broke energy for a while, universe. Don't interrupt this with
Well, and I
a
like,
new job opportunity, because I'm really into this thing right now, this broke thing.
yeah, and I don't know where this came from, but I've heard it and it's so true. If I think I can, I can.
Yeah.
And if I think I can't, I can't. Either
Yeah.
way, I'm right.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
But
basically that simple. And when you said, for those, whether you believe in law of attraction or not, that's like, it's a universal law. That's like, do you believe in gravity or not? Like,
yeah, it
it
works.
just
Right.
is.
Yeah.
So, but we're really talking about, and I think that's where, going back to The Secret and all this stuff, and people, oh, law of attraction doesn't work. It's actually, it does. It's just a law. It is.
Yeah.
It's about, and we don't work it. We just either work with it or against it. But it's really the art of allowing. It's
Right.
being in the flow of it. Like,
Right.
I like that birds of a feather flock together. Like, we're friends because we have common interests.
Right.
Um, we like a lot of the same things. We think a lot, but then there's a lot of things that we don't. There's certain
Right.
things we just don't talk about because we don't have that commonality. I mean,
Right.
and so, but
But country
yeah.
music is a fine genre. I'm just not as passionate about it as you are.
Yeah. Exactly. One of the many things that we don't agree on and we just don't talk about. Although he's very kind and he has mentioned when he was somewhere and they played a song that I love that was from a famous country music.
I don't hate it. I mean, I like
Yeah,
good
yeah,
music. I'm just
yeah.
not as passionate about it. One
Yeah.
example.
And
Yeah. So
I
how
eat meat and Colin doesn't, so it's another thing we
Yeah, but I think how it boils down to the whole 2020. So that was my sort of thing of
yes,
like,
getting back to.
I feel like I'm on Facebook a lot, I'm on Instagram a lot, and I see people saying, um, throughout 2020, people said, oh, 2020 hit us again, or what else? What other terrible things is 2020 going to bring? And for me, that's what's a little disturbing about that, because I know that if that becomes programming after a while, that becomes what people think, and then they are actually thinking, oh, it's 2020. 2020 is a year of bad things, so
There it is. Exactly what we were talking
something
about
else
just a
bad is going
moment
to happen
ago.
to me specifically,
Right.
or the world, but it's something bad is going to affect me because of 2020. And the other aspect of it being that everybody thinks that 2021 will, without their initiative, without their involvement, will suddenly magically be better.
Yeah.
But what I feel like I can say, and we're not going to prevent everybody from doing this, obviously, with this video, but
No, not
my
at all.
intent was for me and you, and then anyone else who watches it, to be like, oh, in order for 2021 to be like a good year, to be like a person that is like giving you good stuff, you have to think that way. You have to initiate that, because if you just default and look around, your human brain is going to find something that it will judge as bad or wrong or terrible or horrible.
So let's do that right now. Like, what in 2020, what happened for you and I that was good? What good stuff came out of 2020 that you didn't expect? Maybe you expected, maybe you didn't. Maybe it came from the whole virus that you just wanted and didn't expect.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. I feel the need to say first that I have enormous sadness around the people that died from COVID-19 around the world, the people that didn't die but had tremendous health issues or have continuing health issues, the family, friends, and loved ones of those people. So I'm in no way saying that because there were some good effects of COVID-19 for me, that it was good for everyone or anything like that, or that it didn't come with some very serious human costs that we're still dealing with and will deal with in 2021. That having been said, I live in Los Angeles. I had parts of my life where I needed to drive a lot, and the traffic in LA I've gotten used to it to a degree, but it was very, very stressful. My first few years in LA, I didn't have to be in the commute time traffic very often, so I didn't get the worst of it. And then in 2019, I had to be traveling during the high commute times on high commute routes way more often than normal. And it was wearing me out and grinding me down. And I remember thinking like around January, February, like, man, I wish there was some way where I could just work from home for a few months. And LA went into lockdown over COVID, and I've been able to work from home in the various things that I do.
And did you ever think that was possible? Like,
I actually thought it was impossible.
Yeah, right.
Like, I actually remember thinking that the various aspects of my life at that time, like there was no possible way for me. Like was just doing so many things that required that. You know, I mean, if you had interviewed me at the time and asked me the question, well, what would it take? And I would say I would take some sort of worldwide global event that I can't even imagine what it would be to get us to do that. And it actually happened. So, and therefore the COVID era, although it's definitely had its unique stresses and challenges for me.
Absolutely.
I've been able to get more rest, get more sleep, be less stressed out.
I think a lot of people feel that way in various ways. They're less. I mean, that was one of the things too. I just felt, I come from a, got to do it all kind of busy-itis, I like to call it. But they were always good things. So I didn't want to let something go because most of it is all good. And I'm, I've got my planner filled and my days are filled, and I can't have like blocks of 3 or 4 or 5 hours with nothing to do. And then when this, when we all got basically told to stay home, it was like, it was like that was what I needed in order to like be able to like say no or not do stuff. And so that has been one of the gifts, is I've just slowed down, have more space. And what I also saw was what's really important to me. Like, what do I really need? Because I'm a woman now who, I have my morning routine where I meditate and I pray and I get some type of physical activity and I read, uplifting things. And that's kind of like my MO. And then I go on through the rest of my day. It's kind of like that pre-paving I was talking about before. It kind of sets the tone for the day. It's like self-care. But it was like, okay, who are the people, who do I need in my life that fill me up, that I want that connection with? And I got to see like some things fell away and some things I like gravitated to, and I'm like, no, these people are important to me. So that was, one of the things that I got this whole experience this year.
I had a question that just sort of popped into my head. Is there value to saying, like, we know I mean, at least I feel like you and I know that it was potentially damaging that people decided 2020 was a year filled with bad things. So one thing that, pops up is like, well, let's do the opposite. Let's proactively put energy out there that 2021 is going to be a great year. But when we just talked about how 2020 had good things in it for both of us and may have had gifts for lots of people, it sort of questions that idea of like, well, 2020 wasn't necessarily this terrible year unless you decide that's what it was for you. So I guess what I'm wondering is there value in saying, from like a law of attraction perspective, is there value in saying 2021 is going to be a great year? I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to contain a lot of good things for me. Or is that just a setup for disappointment?
God, that's a great question. Kind of reminds me of the whole goals thing and the
Mhm.
like New Year's resolutions. And I
Yeah.
think it really comes back to kind of like what I do with clients is just like it's a day-to-day thing. And like
That
do
thing.
the
Yeah.
do the best that you can for today. What can you do to take care of yourself?
Yeah.
Is it, or like, do I want to focus on this? Like my mom, speaking of COVID, she tested positive and we thought we were going to lose her and she had to go to the hospital and I mourned. And we got through all of that. But if I was to focus on like, oh my God, I just almost lost my mom, the how
Mhm.
could they have, she had gotten all of these,
Mhm.
I'm going to go down that path. How
Right.
does it feel? That would feel horrible. I would feel awful. It would attract, it's like, no, I'm going to go back. Thank you that she didn't. And if she had, it was her time. I just believe that.
Right.
But I'm going to focus, I'm going to go over here and just paying attention to how I feel the best I can, moment, day by day, moment by moment. Something I really wanted to say here is like, this is this is a day by day thing. It's not like I've done this for this long, I've made it, I'm clear sailing for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm constantly, there are some challenges that I'm going through that I get to practice this stuff and I
Mhm.
do it perfectly imperfect. It's not,
Yeah.
I don't ever get there wherever there is. I've never made it. I
Yeah.
remember seeing, you and I both went to see Dr. Wayne Dyer,
Mhm.
and I didn't know he was sick at the time.
Mhm.
But he interviewed Abraham,
Mhm.
and I just remember thinking like, wow, this was his own personal session because he was talking about things where he was at in his life. And here he is, this man who's a doctor, he's done all of this work, he's helped so many people, and this is where he was at that point in his life and what he needed to walk through.
Yeah.
And so it's like we never reach that thing that we think is perfection or you've got it and now you've made it and you're clear.
Yeah.
That does not
That's,
exist.
I was just talking about that thing. We went to see them in Anaheim in 2013, 2014.
I don't remember
And
him.
yeah, it was 2014, I think. Um, and
Another
what,
great story in there.
yeah,
We may talk about it someday.
yeah, future episode. But what was remarkable about that to me was that Wayne Dyer was this like very spiritual, like he basically spent, most of his life by that point, on spirituality and law of attraction and understanding all these principles that we talk about, that Abraham talks about, that are in The Secret, all these other places. And then what they very quickly got to was where he was still being negative and generating some negatives, contributing to the creation of some, like negative stuff. And I remember sitting there going like, oh, like this is, it's just what you said, like this isn't like two experts talking to us telling us how to be. This is actually watching, like, almost myself with
Mm.
my whatever I've got going on, that's still
Yeah,
like this
yeah.
negative old
Mm.
beliefs from my old upbringing or whatever, that are still generating negative stuff in my life, or causing me to focus on the negative, and watching Abraham just like massage that out of me, is kind of
Mm.
what it looked like to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a really good thing. I think it's an individual thing for people. I think saying that 2021 is going to be a great year um, can be a really good thing from a law of attraction standpoint, so long as you understand that you're coming at it from a state, it's still you need to have that perspective. You're going to look at it as a good year. You're going to look for the miracles. You're going to look for the things that are great. And you're going to associate 2021 more energetically with those things than with things that you don't like, or things that you feel are sad or tragic, or whatever. I think that could be a good thing, because a lot of people are posting jokey kind of things right now when we're recording this about how they're taking their posts from January of 2020. They had a picture saying, "This is my year,"
Yeah.
And but then the joke is, "Oh, but I was wrong." And I'm looking at those things going, well, that's again giving your power away. Like you're saying, well, I was ready to passively accept 2020 just randomly being a great year for me. But then when it ended up being a bad year, there was nothing I could do about it. And I think, from my perspective I think 2020 definitely from a global and national perspective had a lot of things that I, in my ego, would have preferred went a different way. But I did come into 2020 thinking it was going to be a great year for me. And in many ways it was.
Yeah,
so I mean, that's how I plan to get into that in the next year, is like, I am planning for 2021 to be an amazing year for me. I'm not planning on it having no challenges, no national tragedies, no global tragedies. Like, I just
can't control that stuff. That's out of our hands.
There's a whole bunch of things that has to work out through a whole bunch of different people that have nothing to do with me, So, but I think that's the thing, is like, what I would like to avoid in January and February is when I see on Facebook, if I see on Facebook or Instagram or some platform like that, somebody taking an event that happened in 2021 and deciding and writing that is an indicator that 2021 is going to be a bad year for everybody, that I just shift out of that.
Yeah.
And I don't get on that train with that person.
You said it right. The train, like, you know what? I don't want to go in that direction. And when you were talking, what came to me was, I was served lemons, so I made lemonade.
Yeah.
I think that's where we get to choose. And we were talking before we started recording about your aunt. I love the way you said your aunt, and how she's really shifted, and she's more positive now. And I thought, any of us can do that. We can take any situation and we can either look for the good, or we can look for the not so good stuff. And it's, how does it feel? Like, how do you want to feel? Like, I want to feel better. I just want to feel good. I want to feel happy. I want to feel good about myself. And and how does either one of those make me feel? And I want to gravitate toward that one. And again, I wasn't always like this. I'm not always like this. But by practicing it over and over again, day after day, month after month, year after year, I've gotten to a place where it's like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. Like, I just, my level of how things feel to me now are very different. And that's what I want to perpetuate. And so, and actually, because life is always that way. There's some good stuff and there's some not so good stuff, and that's just life on life's terms. It's both. The kitchen is filled with everything. And I get to help it to be whatever it's going to be. And I think that's really what I want to say here with all of this, is like, we get to choose. What you want. You get to choose. And we're looking for the good, as the cup, half full or half empty. It's a choice. And honestly, there's a lot of people right now listening and be like, you guys are crazy. Like, la, la. And, I had a discussion with someone the other day, and it's like, okay, we just agreed to disagree. Like, how beautiful is that? Because there's how many billions of people in the world? We're not all going to agree. Yeah, we're not all going to agree. And, but I'm not going to fight you for it. And I just would rather agree to disagree.
I mean, I think the thing that I can't predict the future, but I think what I'm scared of is probably going to happen. Like there's going
because there's a high expectation, y'all.
That's the thing.
And our focus is
yeah, like I don't see how the collective, social media goes from this sort of assigning all these bad things to 2020 as a force to suddenly, because what they've been doing, I mean, I don't mean to be judgmental or critical, but just the mechanics of it are they take bad news stories and just like plug them into this framework that, oh, this is the cause, this is all caused by 2020 being a terrible year. Which, if we take it out of context, it's nuts. It's a nutty idea. It's almost like if somebody said that they had a religious belief where they believe that years are people, you'd be like, wow, that's crazy. But because it kind of developed as this jokey thing on the internet, it's kind of like everybody's buying into it. And so, I mean, I think it's likely that something that people generally view as a bad news story is going to happen in January or February. Somebody's going to start a social media wave of, oh no, 2021 is bad also. And that's going to happen. And the people that want to get on that train and join it are going to do it. I think for me, what I can do is I can make sure I don't get on that train. And by doing this show, we can offer to anyone watching, like, you don't have to get on that train either. But it's going to take, I think this is where the thing, I love social media. I think there's a lot of good to it, but I also feel like there are challenges that it presents and, it creates some problems and things. And I think one of the things for me is like when somebody makes a really funny joke about how 2020 has been this disastrous force, it's really easy for me. And I've done it. I mean, you can go on my Facebook page, you'll see it. Like, somebody put, I don't know, like one of my friends put a picture of like, it was just like this normal sort of like, middle-class American home with the house and the driveway, and there was like a leopard on the roof of the garage waiting for the person to come home. And my friend had said on Facebook, like, what would you do if you came home to this? And I put on there, I said, I would thank 2020 for its consistency. I stole from somebody else did something similar on Instagram for something else. I was like,
dude, what? I would, and see me, I probably wouldn't even attract that, but I'd look at that and I'd go, next, like next. I don't even go in there. Next.
Right. But it was funny. So the trap is, and I'm not saying
go for the humor.
They shouldn't be funny or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, I don't feel like I committed like some sort of law of attraction capital crime.
Not at all.
But like, I think for 2021, what I want to do is I actually want to just swipe on those and just go, okay, people are going to need to do that, and that's fine. I don't have to do that. I want to focus on, even with my humor, I want to focus on the good things in 2021.
And it's okay, because it's kind of like what you were saying earlier. It's like, I think the vibration has to be really deep for it to have an impact. And when it's done in like fun, like comedians, it's like we can either take it super serious or just roll with it, and it's freaking funny in the moment, and we don't need to make a federal case out of it. So
the other thing that I think, I didn't really process this until what you just said, but there's one thing. It's one thing to say that 2020 was a weird year with a lot of weird, challenging things in it. It's another thing energetically to say 2020 should not have happened the way it happened. And I think that's really if I were to identify the damaging thing underneath the 2020 is a bad person, it's that things should have happened another way. Like, these things should not have gone this way. And I can understand that impulse because I have it too as a human being. If a lot of people die in a tragic way or something like that, it's human to go, well, that shouldn't have happened. But the thing is, once something has already happened, if you want to be happy, you've got to focus on the present and the future. And if you, from a law of attraction perspective, if you continually call back your mind to something that you view as wrong and shouldn't have happened that way, then you're kind of going to keep creating that experience for yourself moving forward. Is you're going to continue to experience things that you don't like, and you're going to continue to say, well, that shouldn't have happened, and you're not going to get out of this loop of having that vibration, manifesting that, observing the manifestation you don't like,
Well, I think we could do a whole show about death. I mean,
Next week's show.
we think that we're not going
There
to
we go.
die. We think that we're not going to die. We think that it's
Yeah.
horrible when people die, but it's like, hello,
Yeah.
people. We are born and we are going to die.
Yeah.
It
I,
is what it is. And it's like to think that we're not, or that when someone does, it's horrible and tragic. It's like,
yeah.
I'm going to die someday. And actually, I love what Abraham says, happy joy, dead. Like
Yeah.
that's mine now because it's going to happen. I don't know when and how.
Yeah.
And I got my own kind of law of attraction thing going on there about how, but
Yeah.
but it's like total denial. I mean, it's like one of the biggest things, and it is a touchy subject. And not to anyone who has their family member, friends, whoever transitioned this year because of COVID, um, the pain and the sorrow and the sadness of losing someone. I understand, and my condolences. Um, and it's going to happen for all of us someday.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that, the body is gone, but the spirit is always with us. I mean, I have loved ones who we chat here and
Yeah.
there, and that's
There's
you know that as well. So
yeah, it makes me think of this thing I saw in The Onion, which is a comedy, like they do fake news stories for comedy. And there was one headline they had once, which was something like, despite 3,000 years of science, recent study finds that being human still has 100% death rate. And I just like, it made me laugh because I'm like, yeah, a lot of us walk around thinking like we're not going to die. And it's like, it's like the one thing we can all count on.
Yeah, right.
I echo what
Like
you
you
said
may
about,
not pay your taxes, and you may never not have
yeah,
to for what,
yeah,
but you will.
you
You
will
will
kick it
die. You will die. You will take your last
Yeah,
breath someday. That is a
yeah.
guaranteed fact.
And I think, and again, law of attraction aside, I mean, I think
And so will I.
what I can get caught up in and what I have gotten caught up in, I'm not some masterful guru that's gotten past all this stuff. I still struggle with this stuff, but
Yeah, me
you know,
too. That's why I'm here.
yeah, I know, but I can read the news and I can just get into a negative spiral about it. And that doesn't really, like, one thing I've really observed this year is like, after I've read the headline of a news story and I understand what happened, I don't need to read 3 more articles about it. Like if it's purely information I can get that out of one article. If I'm reading 4, which I did a lot in 2020, that's just my habit of wanting to focus on the negative, to create like a little mini drama in my head as something that I'm choosing to do. And it doesn't necessarily feel like a conscious choice, but that's that's essentially what it is. Yeah. And I think what I would like to do more often in 2021 is just accept that the world's going to be the world. There's going to be things that I interpret as positive, I interpret as negative, that other people interpret as positive, other people interpret as negative. But I have a choice on how I look at I have a choice of like, am I going to focus on my life and what I actually can influence and control?
Yeah.
And then within that, am I going to have a positive, loving kindness focus, or am I going to have a gloom and doom, fear-based, and I think
be
I'd like to take,
perfectly human and have variations of those two,
yeah,
but leaning more to the side
getting more
that,
and more, yeah,
that makes me
yeah,
feel a little better
yeah,
about myself and my life and others.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining me here today. This has been another fun time.
You're awesome.
Thank you for watching this episode of Co-Creation
Yay.
Session.
Welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Stephanie is a transformational life coach, and she can be reached or contacted at
www.powerinjoy.com for your free discovery session.
And there should be links in the comments below as well, but you can reach me at collinworster.com. I'll just put it in the links. I'm not going to spell it. right. Well, happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah, happy
Probably
New
2021
Year.
by the time you're seeing this, and we'll see
Bring
you
it
next week.
on.
Thanks so much for watching.
Bye, y'all.